So we just had a really beautiful conflict, and welcome to our embodied afterglow of conflict. And um, yeah, I feel that there is a ripe happening right now, a ripe invitation. I feel like there's a request of the time right now to really understand that conflict is an opportunity. And I don't know about you, but I have seen wild things happening in the collective mind, between men and women, and just anybody who's choosing to be in a romantic relationship right now. I feel like there's wild things happening out there. And I thought it would be beautiful to get together with you to talk about the phenomena of this, of conflict, talk about the phenomena of conflict, and to really begin this radically imaginative conversation about creating relationships that are free from fear, creating relationships that are intelligent enough to go beyond trauma and ego. And really just to acknowledge that the work that we're doing right now, if you're in a romantic relationship right now, in this moment, if you're incarnated in the world in this moment, then probably your relationship that you're in, or your loverships that you're in, however many people you're relating with, are most likely a spiritual crucible of the work that needs to be done in the world. And my feeling is that there's something happening that's quite particular in this moment. I don't know how you're feeling about this, but I feel like over the last 5 days with this Aries full moon, I feel like there's been wild things happening particularly between men and women. And what I'm feeling is that it's, modern love, ancient conflicts. I get this feeling that there's profane, it's like very profane causes, and there's this sensation that there's a sacred gift, that there's a sacred reason for these conflicts coming to the surface right now. Yeah, there's more I could say for now. However, I do want to mention that, yeah, the work that we particularly do is focused on dyadic intimacy, so dyadic equations, and particularly the dyadic equation of men and women coming together as a crucible of healing the polarities and uniting the polarities of the masculine and feminine, both within and without. And so, there are hundreds of different relationship orientations, and there are even more than that, different ways of identifying different gender identities. And I just feel to acknowledge right now that we will be speaking specifically to the phenomena of work that's emerging between male bodied people, female bodied people who identify as man and woman, choosing to come together right now, and the particular healing that's possible in that dyadic constellation. And within that, if you are not someone who identifies as a heterosexual person, the phenomena that we're speaking to, that we're exploring, may be applicable to your relationship too. I have a feeling that it will be more widely applicable, but I just feel to mention that we're probably going to say some stuff about men and women, masculine and feminine. And just as a disclaimer, I'm purely going to be referring to my own messy infused experience, and I am not claiming to be an expert on this. Feels invigorating to get together right now with you to have this potent conversation about the work that is happening in the collective mind through relationships right now.
Okay.
How does that feel?
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful to hear you. I think I resonate a lot with kind of like, as we are like riding this storm of collective transformation and collective challenge. And also for me, if I look at the last week, There have been quite some tough quite some tough days. And so in this little call, what we want to bring, we want to look at conflict, individually and collectively and in relationships. And we want to look specifically in kind of like the past, where do conflicts come from? The present, what do we do with conflicts now? And the future, how can a future look that is maybe not without conflicts, because probably conflicts will always be there in life, but how we meet conflicts in a new way that is not in a way kind of like super destructive and breaking everything, but leads a way forward.
Yeah, because I do want to mention this one piece, that when we go deeper talking about conflict as a beautiful opportunity rather than a challenge, I do want to mention this important piece of caretaking and mindfulness around the fact that I personally have no wish to encourage staying in any kind of violent toxic relationships that are unhealthy. Also, it's not about, oh, there's conflict, amazing, you should stay. It's more about understanding and embodying discernment around whether there is a beautiful gift within the conflict that's emerging in a healthy, happy, and nourishing and furthering relationship. And nonetheless, it can also be about the conflict that's happening within, and how, yeah, and how we can, yeah, embody discernment around, just embodying discernment around where we dive deep into conflict, when is a good time to do that. You were mentioning earlier on about being graceful and having discernment around when is a good moment to go into conflict resolution work. Yeah, so just want to also disclaimer that we're not simply saying you should always go into conflict all the time with everyone, you know. um
Yeah, and for me, it's also kind of like the to not encourage to go into conflict, but to go out of conflict to find ways to resolve it. And for me, if I look at the past, where do conflicts come from? It's really to look into the like that every person has a history of trauma. Every person has like a history of individual trauma that like happens in their own life. Of trauma that is related to the early stages of development, so kind of like a baby, infant, child, or even the birth or prenatal trauma. And then this in a way like relates to the collective trauma that is kind of like passed on through the generations. And with my lens, with the constellation work lens, I look a lot into for the persons I work with, I look a lot into that, like what is the, in a way, like the information field of trauma and conflict that recreates itself over and over again. And it's like a chain of pearls of conflict that shows up in several stages in the life. And kind of like I see myself often as like a detective, like tracking for these pearls and tracking for the chain of pearls, how they are connected, and to really see what are the root causes of it.
mm. I love it when you say that about the about tracking the pearls, and when you say about the pearls, I get this feeling that there's something older and wiser coming through. Like it's almost, I feel like this embodying discernment around conflict for me has been around understanding where is there a very wise conflict that's emerging, like an old pattern of mine from my own personal lineage, an old pattern of the collective, and that I feel is like where there's really wise conflict to really merge with and work with this, that there is a certain wisdom there. And when you say that, I get this feeling that why I'm excited about the moment is because I have this feeling that everybody in a modern relationship right now is dealing with ancient conflicts. That there's
mm,
something about the intelligence of the moment right now that I feel like God has basically kind of like been storing all of in his kind of like cosmic filing cabinet, has been storing all of these conflicts, and he's been waiting for like the perfect moment cosmically and the perfect moment energetically of people's centers being open to be like, great, now let's file all of this shit and great, I'm going to get these contemporary bodhisattvas to do all of my relationship
mm.
resolution.
I think the time is really now, and it's happening
Mm.
for a lot of people. And I like, in a way, the perspective, how you call them, the contemporary bodhisattvas, is kind of like there seems to be a readiness
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of people, kind of like a readiness and a stability to really like heal the deepest wounds, and kind of like there's this some American mystic, Chris Page, and he says that we are kind of like, he sees the time that we're living in as the completion and integration of all the open karmic threads that we have.
Mm. I
and
love
and
that.
and in a way, it's like to really acknowledge this over and over again, that I'm sure there's like lots of people out there who are like for years in a path of
Mm.
self-discovery and healing, and then they think, why layer after layer there is so much conflicts? And of course there is like a spiraling or circling around where things cannot resolve, but then there can also be kind of like layer over layer, layer on top of layer, of old stuff, of old conflicts that just kind of like want to
Mm.
emerge and want to be yeah, integrated, and find a new way forward. So I like very much
Mm.
this perspective of kind of like the ancient, you said this earlier, I really like that, ancient conflicts and modern
Love.
something.
Modern love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's this feeling of, oh, I don't even know where this came from. That's also a sensation that I'm getting as well. Like, oh, I didn't know that it's like triggers coming out of nowhere, relationship patterns coming out of nowhere, attachment injuries coming out of nowhere for people. And it's not coming out of nowhere, it's coming out of your open center that's connected to just centuries of misunderstanding, fear, contraction, avoidance. Makes
yeah,
sense that it's coming out now, it's like
yeah.
something is being revealed, something has been made, something is ready now to be felt.
Mm.
um
And I think also there is a possibility for many people to be on a tipping point of no longer saying, "Ah, I have so much trauma, I have so much karma, I have so much to," like, in a way, kind of like being in this helpless position, but really be in a tipping point of saying, okay, I'm in the presence now. I have a lot
mm,
of history, trauma, and karma that is with me, and I start to
mm,
make a flip and start to take responsibility and stop to blame others, or like my upbringing or other people for what did not like happen right in my life, or how like to just blaming circumstances or the past, but to make a flip and start to take responsibility and to be in the now and see,
mm,
okay, these are the conflicts, these are the challenges that are coming, and like, what do I need to yeah, to resolve them, to integrate them, to bring connection where there's still things that are disconnected.
mm. So for example, say if I'm in a relationship, say if I'm in a modern relationship and I have this intuition that there are ancient conflicts being moved through the vehicle of my contemporary relationship constellation. What's a good way to discern whether A, it's a good moment to do conflict resolution work, B, it's a worthwhile conflict? How do you discern whether it's a worthwhile conflict? And C, yeah, like what are some simple kind of fundamental points of awareness that a dyadic couple can use to, yeah, just navigate having more awareness, essentially. If you're in a relationship right now and you're having a sense that these conflicts are moving through the vehicle of your relationship, how do you know when it's a good idea? Why do you know it's a good idea? Like, why and how? And what can we begin to do to, yeah, pierce through layers of defensiveness to get right into that core of like awareness where beautiful just opportunities are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so many questions. I
And I like
I've
I'm kind of asking my, trauma informed relationship wizard who would probably not identify that way. And yet, really it's more of a question. Yeah, it's more of an exploration
yes,
than a
yes.
tell me the tell
Le-
me everything, tell me how I can heal all of my relationships.
yeah. I mean, for me, it's I think for me it's good to discern between conflicts that really happen in the moment. For
Mm,
example, yeah, I want to cook at home, or the other person says I want to go to a restaurant, and then maybe, okay, this can be resolved. But if underneath this maybe repeating conflict of eating out or in, there is other conflicts that relate to unresolved material, and they repeat over and over again. So first of all, like discerning between these two kind of like repeating conflicts and just kind of like everyday conflicts. And then for the repeating conflicts, I think what I said earlier, also before we started recording, is for me is always a good opportunity to resolve um, conflicts when people are not in their like wounded parts.
mm,
Doesn't matter if we say wounded child or wounded adult, but if both feel like
mm,
really kind of like ready and present
mm.
with what is, then I think is a good time to resolve conflict, and also in a way to mm, when both people feel resourced enough to meet each other.
Mm.
And because there can be conflicts, and these are especially the conflicts that go on for weeks and months, where people feel the more we are going into this conflict is not resolving, but it's creating like a downward spiral, and we're not only not coming out of, but the downward spiral is even starting to destroy the connection and maybe the surrounding. This is a moment to really consider to bring support in,
Right.
and then there can be conflicts that are like that can feel like a upward spiral. Kind of like the more we solve things, the more we find like synergetic ways forward.
Mm.
So also kind of like second discernment, where is an upward spiral and where is a downward spiral.
Yes, yes. Constructive, destructive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking to the time relevance piece or the moment relevant piece for conflict work, you mentioned about um, checking in if you and or the other person are in a wounded state. I would
Mm-hmm.
also use additional language that's just if you're in a triggered state.
Mm-hmm.
If you're both in a triggered state, you're
Not a
both
good
essentially in
time
the
to.
emotionally intellectual caliber of 3-year-old children. And I mean, you essentially have the emotional intellect of a 3-year-old child. And so in that moment, what needs to be prioritized is the needs of your 3-year-old child, both of you. And you're not going to get into a highly intellectual, emotionally literate debate with a 3-year-old child because you understand that there's not reciprocity possible. So yeah, it's like that. We get really dumb when we're triggered,
Mm.
and to have compassion for that happens to everyone. And I want to mention that happens to everyone. It happens to everyone. There is absolutely nobody that doesn't happen to. Doesn't matter how many workshops you've done, Doesn't matter how many certificates you have for your nonviolent communication and your relationship mentorship. It doesn't matter. It happens to everyone. And I think the more advanced you can get is to understand the more simple you become in those moments.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, like talking about the wounded or about the triggered parts, we cannot, like we are all part of humanity in some
Oh,
form
shit.
or another. So we carry this history that humanity has, full of like wars and violence, and not only on a large scale but also in the families. And so there is trauma states, and that also relate to, I mean, not only human history but also kind of like birth is a very energetic process, for example. And so these very archaic forces, they move in us. And especially if like two people are triggered and they are in touch with these forces of creation and destruction, then it's not the wisest to let these like forces clash. And one tool that I really love, that I actually love most, is to slow down and to say like, wow, it seemed, and to slow down and to really kind of like step back for a moment from all story, and to say, wow, for example, I feel a lot of fire, or even kind of like go to the, like, I feel a lot of tension in my belly.
Yeah.
I feel, and to really kind of like be into honestly sharing how you are right now. And kind of like, this can be like, if there's a heated moment, to kind of like switch from trying to solve something or trying to talk about something into my whole body is trembling, or saying I don't feel myself anymore, really, kind of like describing, because this can be like a possibility to, especially if you have an agreement with the person that you're in conflict with, that you do this can be like a possibility to in a way track or become aware of things that actually happen sometimes really fast. And like a lot of trauma information, or like things happened really fast. So if we slow down, these layers can show themselves and we can become aware of them.
That's also my favorite tool.
Mhm.
Stop, drop, and feel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that, I mean, a 3-year-old child is acutely aware of how they feel, actually. And that, I feel, is one of my favorite things about conflict, actually, is that I become highly aware of how I feel now that I understand that that's actually the gift. Is, oh, there's a lot of feeling happening here. And if I miss the miracle of the sensation and the feeling, then I'm already outside of the realm of of the gift that conflict can bring. Yeah, I feel like it can be highly intelligent to simplify things in those moments.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
And maybe to like to have an agreement, because especially in the, I mean, there's different trauma reactions or triggers, and one of them then like triggered, usually often people think about, oh, triggered means angry, but triggered can also mean like dissociated or frozen,
Yes,
to
yes,
a point
yes.
that the other person even cannot realize what that is a reaction, or even oneself cannot realize it. So it can be helpful to give each other the permission to say, hey, if you think that I'm in a dissociated state, then you can tell me, and then we can find out together. So kind of like having the agreement that slowing down does not only happen if I notice that I'm in a in an activated place, but also if I have the impression that the other person is. And then
Yes.
we can kind of like connect on that level and say, oh, wow, okay, yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe I am a
Yes.
bit off. And then it does not make sense to continue. and in a way, to see, like, this would be the next step if slowing down happens, and the triggered part is kind of like to see what does this state need to regulate again, like
I love that way of making it impersonal as well. What does this state need?
mm,
It's not even about you. It's not even the you that's activated, that there's an activation,
yeah,
that there's some kind of phenomena present that has
yes,
latched onto the moment or has latched onto the connection. It is, yes.
And then the question in the slowing down to say, yeah, what does it really need to regulate, like which form of contact. And a lot of relational trauma happens through either a contact being too much, like forms of violence, or a contact being not there, like in the abandonment or something. And so different ways, like if it's a trauma response to violence, which is aggression, then it would be like kind of like that the contact retreats in a way. Or if it's of something being not there, then there is a necessity, like, or there's a wish for a contact, to reconnect. And the question is really, the one thing is to realize this in a conflict, and then the other thing is to, okay, but like, how are we dealing with it? Can we provide this in the moment? Can I provide it for myself? Can the other person provide it? Or is it actually something that I say, okay, I cannot be in this conflict right now because I need really, this seems to be something deeper. I need some support. And really kind of also stepping out from the idea that always the two of us have to solve it.
Yes.
Always, like, we have to manage it.
Yes.
But really, this is like the biggest encouragement I want to say into the camera, is to really bring a lot of support.
Yes.
From friends, but even if it's too big for friends, then from professionals, to really bring as much as possible support, because there's not nothing to complete all the karmic threads of all the hundreds of
you're dealing with centuries of God's filing cabinet, of like relationship conflicts that have gone unresolved. You're dealing with them. They may not be part of your ancestry. They may just be like your postman and the conflict that his grandmother had. You might be dealing with it through the vehicle of your relationship. It's like a lot. We're dealing with a lot of conflicts right now in the collective mind. And it's going to require bodies that are bigger than the dyadic equation of man and woman or two people. It's like, if you're dealing with a trauma that a huge family have unresolved, then probably it's great to at least get another person to help carry the load. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that's the most beautiful thing that I've integrated from polyamory and being in open relationships, is that, more is more, more is more. However, more is more help. And it's something that intuitively happens in more open relating circles that are not necessarily even conscious or spiritual, that there's already a consciousness, a knowing that when there's a conflict that emerges in mine and your constellation, the lover that we share can indeed support us in being more emotionally literate, having more of an adult response than a wounded response. And it's that intelligence is already being made very casual in kind of polyamorous circles. Yeah, in the best case. And anyways, even if, that third person doesn't need to be like a couples coach in order to help a couple get to somewhere beautiful. It's just about having an extra body, even sometimes just energetically having an extra body in the room, simply doing nothing and witnessing. There's a certain caliber of presence and integrity that is there, that I feel is just always, always, always worth having around. Just having more bodies to help carry the load of doing this like huge filing cabinet amount of work that we're doing right now.
For me, it's also in a way kind of like to really another encouragement that I want to talk to the camera is kind of like to really come out of the idea that that I have not done enough, or it's not like I have not like now so many years of healing work, and I have still I'm going through all of this, kind of like to like really in a way to change the scope of like I mean the magnitude of the kind of like the transformational work that we are going through, and and to put this into relation, because for example is you could be the first person of your family to look
Yes.
into things, and then yeah, apparently you the person that is the more like receptive or sensitive one, and feels all the shadow of the family, and starts to now maybe work for years on resolving all the threads that are woven through you. Yeah, really I want to invite yeah, patience and self-compassion for also this role in kind of like resolving yeah, really this huge pile it can feel sometimes.
Yes, it's a huge role. Yeah, so we want support from community, and we want support in being able to self-regulate, in being able to feel. Um, there's this huge desire to be like, like all of these tools that can be possible. And my feeling is that we can collect tools for years. However, if I feel like this fundamental piece around feeling, I feel is the most important one. Because what I love about it, this might be this might be kind of the last piece that I'll mention on this, is that it's highly intelligent, this stop, drop, and feeling, because I feel that there's kind of a step, my own personal kind of step by step process around beginning to open curiosity, which is the entrance into resolving conflict, is, bringing in more curiosity that extends beyond myself and my trauma, curiosity that where I'm able to be compassionate and strong enough to be able to be more curious about the other. This I feel like is the true relationship bodhisattva. Like that's like the true relational bodhisattva, is that I'm able to feel myself whilst also having space to feel the other. This is like the deepest work. And when you're there, the tool doesn't matter too much. It doesn't need to be so intellectual and refined. If you're able to get there where you can feel yourself deeply and you're genuinely curious about the other person simultaneously, then you're a relationship superhero, and it's all gonna be much more integrated from there. But what I love about it is, if I'm able to stop and feel myself, and if I have a partner who is clear and loving enough to reflect to me what they see, so they have to be able to feel and be able to perceive me as well. It's like they need to have that strength. If they're able to be clear and loving and reflect to me what they see or what they feel, if they see a dysfunctional pattern kind of emerging in me, and if I'm able to be strong enough to receive that, then we're able to begin dissolving these dysfunctional patterns together. And in order to get there, we just really want to get out of the lane of blame. It's like this I feel is the core phenomena that is the cause of all conflicts not being able to resolve themselves, is blame. It's like, so what do we do to get out of blame? Firstly, get into the feeling body and get into the curiosity. And then I feel like you can do important kind of what did you say? You're like a Sherlock Holmes, like a relationship Sherlock Holmes. I love that.
I think blame, we had it already in the beginning when I was mentioning that there can be a tipping point in saying, like when I stop to blame, like my past or my partner or like my parents or whoever, for the pain or the suffering that I have, and to really move beyond that and to acknowledge that all the pain and the suffering I have is information from my own history that gets reactivated through the world, that gets in resonance with the world, and to really take responsibility and take care about that. And I think that moving beyond blame really opens up, or only really opens up if both partners really want to be on that journey. That's, I feel, really important, because blame can also happen if one person is like, but I'm doing all the healing work and you're doing nothing. But then this is also a part
Yeah.
of blame, and maybe
It's also blame, yeah.
also blame again. And maybe maybe the one person has one approach, the other has another approach, but if they're both willing to like uncover and look into things and then move forward from there, I think there can be a collaboration. And this brings me already into like what is a future, what is a potential future of relating. Because I think I work with a lot of people that are suffering in relationships, and support them, like in a way, kind of like to find steps out of it. And what I see is that many people are so used to that conflicts, now that relationships are full of conflicts, and if you have grown up and in a conflictive situation, then this is really woven so deeply into you, kind of like that, that this is relationship, and that this is love.
I'm really happy you say that.
And it's kind of like, it's a confusion that kind of like that love is conditional, or love is
transactional also,
or transactional, or love is something that if you don't do this or that, and as punishment, kind of like really the darker parts of like early development, and like what we learned from the parents and from the surroundings that we are in. And
also from the kind of neuroanthropology of the human mind, like the rise of agriculture, how that has totally warped the way that we relate to our love of like giving something to get another thing. It's old, it's ancient.
Yeah, that's true. And so again and again, it's nice that I feel that we bring this in kind of like this wider scope, and then saying, okay, like check, saying like what would it look like, or what if even we take a moment to feel like, how could it feel like or look like if I have a healed relational field. And it's funny, the cat is coming now. To have like a healed relational field, and to and it can take years. But I mean, like from what I see, I'm like from myself, but also from what I see from learning with and working with people, learning from working with people, is kind of like that it is worth it. And I see more and more people that kind of like they can really like they experience a new way of relating, because they resolve their shit in a way, and move forward into something that does not feel opposing or against each other, but it feels like synergetic.
Yeah, synergetic. Yeah, for me, dynamism is really important, that things feel dynamic. That for me would be a very radically imaginative form of relating, where there is a dynamic, very fertile curiosity, and that we are both beyond this rhetoric of relationships just being a struggle. That for me, a radically imaginative form of relating for me personally would be that there is this fertile space of knowing that relationships are there to be also nourishing and creative and innovative and furthering and beautiful and expansive, whilst also simultaneously allowing space for what the relationship wants to be rather than imposing my will on it. Like that for me personally, I just felt like you weren't even proposing this, but I wanted to propose that that is what would be radically imaginative for me, to really understand that relationships
Hmm.
do not need to be painful or be a struggle, or
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
because they actually don't.
Yeah, I really love that, and it's kind of like to meet relationships, or not only relationships, but I often love to meet life like that, instead
Mm.
of why are you not giving me this, but
No,
to
yeah.
say, okay, what do you like, what do you want, what do you want
Mm.
from me, and like
Mm.
what is like just kind of like yeah, like
Mm.
where is this going, instead of like to really be open and to into it, where is my path going,
Mm.
where is this relationship going, instead of
Mm.
trying to have an ideas, because anyway, and this kind of like links the future with the past in a way, because anyway every future that we try to gear towards, and that is like strongly informed by the feeling of I want this, and this is how it should be, and
Mm.
this is how we
Mm.
should evolve, I would say is mostly, if not all, really informed by the like what we saw in our upbringing, and what is kind of like also a lot of unresolved needs that we
Mm.
still try to meet, and something should happen, it can happen from that. And so there can be
Mm.
another frequency of moving towards something, in a feeling
Mm.
of not I really want that, I really need that, but of oh,
Mm.
wow, this feels right. And it can be also clear and strong, but it's like what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
less being from this strong urge, than more being from this kind of like
Strong
um,
trust.
trust.
Thrusting into trusting.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a funny but clear conclusion.
Yes.
Mhm. So
Is that the radical future of love that you want to see? Is people thrusting into trusting?
I think maybe there's a next step where it's even just I think it's nice that trust has a appearance now in this talk,
Yes.
even though at the end, because for me it's really essential to to see where trust is, and where it has not been, or where it has been destroyed, and where like again it's again like an arc to the past in a way. Where has trust been shaken, or
Yes.
destroyed, and what is necessary? And there's lots of the
Mm.
things we said, kind of like looking where are the trauma fields,
Yeah.
looking how we can slow down to really say. It also in a way like it also weaves to the present, like how are we
Mm.
meeting conflicts, and when is it necessary to maybe step back from a conflict. And I would definitely say, if not both people feel trust that moving through a conflict is helpful,
Mm.
it's better maybe to not go too deep into it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and what I feel the most radical thing we can do right now is really cultivate this strength in trust as well, because that for me is what supports me in moments of conflict with a partner, is trusting that it needed to happen, trusting that something, trusting that when I'm in a moment of tension with a beloved, it's it's facilitating, it's simply facilitating another moment that will feel very beautiful at another point, and that every experience truly being welcomed and being allowed its full circuit and being trusted is simply just facilitating more beauty, just more truth, just more real experience. So for me, trust feels like the strongest tool for self-regulating in conflict, of trusting that absolutely everything that's happening needs to be happening, or not even that, on a deeper layer, what can I make it mean for me? How can I allow this to be, how can I allow this to be meaningful for me? So yeah, this trust feels important for sure. Yeah. And from that place, trusting that if our relationship needs to end, I trust my intuition when I intuit that. I trust I trust you. I trust my choices, because I'm not warping and forcing and manipulating and controlling my relationships anymore. I'm trusting my relationships now. I'm trusting relationships to come towards me when they need to be. I'm trusting that relationships dissolve when they need to.
Wonderful. I mean, yeah, to me, feels like we have like reached like arrived in a full circle. I don't know if you want to add anything. I feel that's about it for now for this video.
I trust that this video has come to an end.
Super. Okay.